won a Grammy. Man, I should have won a Grammy. Should have won a Grammy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Grammy Grab Fest, at least for now. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me is my West Coast sister and that gal around the 80s, Rosemarie. How you doing?
I'm great, Jesse. How are you doing?
I am super. We just spent a few moments before we recorded talking about certain prima donnas, donnas and not musicians, believe it or not.
Yeah, tell me about it. Wow.
Yeah. So we have made it through the 80s.
We did. It was a
Yes.
short trip. I want to go back.
Oh, yes. We are, tonight we are talking the Grammy Awards for 1989, and the end of a decade.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what was happening in 1989.
Wow. Let me think now. It's what was happening in 1989? Yeah, I was reevaluating my life, basically.
Okay.
I'm officially a single mom now, and my 3 young children are kind of dependent on me to make all the decisions and keep them safe and fed and a roof over their heads. So um we moved a couple of times only because I wasn't quite sure of the neighborhoods that we lived in. And 1989, I was lucky to find it was kind of an old house, but the lady that owned it was such a sweetheart. Her name was Mrs. Bird, and she, I want to say, literally owned half the neighborhood. But she started in Washington way, way back when, knew the whole history of Washington and the area where we lived at. And her and her husband brought up a bunch of property and stuff. So he did that in order for her to have an income when, she got older and retired. And
Right.
he passed away first. And so she was pretty settled, and I learned a lot from her. You don't really think at 29 that, you're pretty much done learning stuff, but you're really not. And
Right.
she had a lot to offer. And it was very, very interesting knowing her, So we rented her house and started our new life, and was looking forward to the future.
Okay. Very nice. 1989 was the year Chris Jackson was born.
Yay.
Yes, February 10th, 1989. And so that was a major change, and I think a lot to do with music. Because you're kind of watching a little bit different. I was very heavily into local bands, Sarah Hickman and Brave Combo and the New Bohemians, a lot of Dallas local musicians. So there are some of these I know really well and other things I don't know. I know one of the things that 1989 Grammys was known a big deal about the best new artist.
Yeah.
At the time, the nominees were Tone Loc, Soul to Soul, Indigo Girls, Nene Cherry?
Nene
Is that how you
Cherry.
say it? Nene Cherry?
Yeah.
And Milli Vanilli.
The Milli Vanillis.
Is there anything you want to share about any of them before we get to poor Milli Vanilli?
Well, honestly, no, because
Okay.
this is I was really starting to not listen to a lot of MTV and VH1. I was, like I said, I was raising my kids, trying to get them, and us on the right track. So I was kind of switching over. Was listening to a lot of Christian music and going to church and try not to be too heavily involved in things that would take me away from that. And truthfully, it had taken a different turn,
Right,
towards the end of the 80s, so I wasn't really seeing a lot of the familiar faces that I was so used to.
right. Um, the I remember seeing the Indigo Girls perform sometime in the early 90s, and I remember it being a really good show.
Hmm.
But, I think similar to as you,
Hmm.
1989 would have been the year I turned 30.
Hmm.
So, officially, never trust anyone over 30, and I had reached that. Um, I turned 30, I had my first child. I started a new job in 1989 after losing a couple of, had gone through a spell of um, not having a consistent job.
Right.
Stayed at this job that started in 1989 for 14 years.
Wow.
So there was not as much. Um, there is some things that we can talk about that I do have some emotional connection to,
Hmm.
but really none of the new artists
Yeah.
mean much to me.
No. No, I mean, they were obviously, the hits of what was going on for
Right.
then, but I have no emotional attachment to any of them.
Do you, um, I sometimes wonder because so much music nowadays is programmed
Hmm.
and is synthesized that, was Milli Vanilli just ahead of the curve?
Um, Jeez, really. No, I don't really feel that. I
Okay.
honestly feel that they were seriously trying to pull a fast one.
Okay.
I really feel that. And then they
Yeah,
got
and
caught.
yeah, I agree with that. I was just for the sake of the argument, but no, I think it is one thing when when current artists quote unquote sample songs,
Mm.
they're not trying to say it's their song. I mean, they're doing this. So, yeah, very interesting. And on the record books, there is no best new artist. It
Right,
just says revoked.
right. And then there
Yeah,
was no runner up or anything like that. It's not
yeah,
like a beauty contest
exactly.
or anything. So
Right,
it just goes to show you.
right. Let's move on to Song of the Year. For the last time, I'm going to remind you that goes to the writer of the song. We had "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel, "The Living Years," Mike Rutherford and Brian A. Robertson, "The End of Innocence," Don Henley, Bruce Hornsby, "Don't Know Much," Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, and Tom Snow, and "Wind Beneath My Wings," Larry Henley and Jeff Silbar.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? Ladies first?
I'll let you start.
Okay, I will tell you that I have been on the record that I had me a major crush on Linda Ronstadt when I was in high school. And when she came back, and it felt like to me that she had gone and done the classical albums
Hmm.
with Nelson Riddle.
Yep.
And then she had done a couple of his Spanish
Yeah.
albums because of her background.
Hmm.
And it felt like, and I'm not saying it's necessarily true, but um, you know, I've decided that I want to make music again,
Yeah.
pop music.
Hmm.
And so she does, this album has some of uh, the Neville brothers, one of
Hmm.
the Neville brothers with
Yeah.
her.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, she's amazing.
Hmm.
You know, it, when she did this song
Mhm.
with Aaron Neville,
Mhm.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
How Like the Wind, Cry Like the Rainstorm, How Like a Wind
Mhm.
today remains one of my favorite albums.
Nice.
Almost every song on that album is great.
Mhm.
We were lucky enough to go see her in concert,
Oh, nice.
and the Neville Brothers opened,
Oh,
which were amazing. And then when Aaron came out,
Mhm.
and um, so I love that song,
Mhm.
that's nominated.
Right.
You know, don't know much.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't start the fire. I still remain a Billy Joel fan,
Mhm.
and so Billy Joel was one of those I bought the albums for
Mhm.
regardless.
Mhm.
So obviously did like that. Age of the Innocents certainly got a lot of radio play,
Mhm.
and then Mike and the Mechanics, right? The Living Years.
Yeah.
So and then The Wind Beneath My Wings just was everywhere that summer.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my stories of the songs. How about you?
Well, Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" to me seemed like a gimmick song.
Totally agree.
And I was a little disappointed. With it was catchy, and it had a whole lot of references to history, and
And a fun video with all the
yeah,
clips and
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. So, I've heard him do better,
yes, I agree.
So it wasn't
And a
really that exciting to me.
and a gimmicky song is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think REM ended up doing something similar
yeah,
later, but still, I mean, that actually holds even though it's catchy and poppy and it's the end of the world as we know it. Yeah, I get it, but
yeah,
let's do something a little bit original, people. Come on.
yeah.
Living Years, heavy song, definitely. Mike Rutherford, former member of Genesis, branching out on his own, getting his own band. This is a good song. It was I don't know if it was based on truth, but might as well could have, it could have easily been, but anybody could have probably have sung it, and if it would have had, that much meaning, in someone's life, to be able to have that truth and share it with others. I mean, that's, you know, it's philosophy, so that's good. That's always good to add to a song. End of the Innocence, Don Henley. Hmm. Um, not one of my favorites, but then again, I can kind of hit and miss. Sometimes I like heavy stuff, sometimes I don't. But this ended up on the don't side, I'm afraid. It's still a good song. I mean, I don't take anything from that, but Don Henley's an excellent songwriter, and as well as Bruce Hornsby. I mean, you know, both of them are a good team. Um, don't know much. Mm, Linda Ronstadt has been a lot of things in her career, and she has a beautiful voice, and she can either do rock or country or Latina music and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, she's a very gifted vocalist. So I enjoyed the harmony in this song. Her and Aaron Neville
Yeah,
was very very pretty and melodic, and I like
a
stuff
very
like that.
a very pop happy single.
Yeah.
It
Uh-huh.
is adult contemporary all the way.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And then finally, Wind Beneath My Wings. OMG.
Yes.
If no one has seen Beaches in their
Yeah.
life, get out of my face and go watch it. That is the best movie in the entire world for a woman to watch, a man to watch, teenager. It's a relationship movie. It's about friends. And you've been a friend for so long, and it's like you have your ups and downs, and, unfortunately, sometimes your downs are more than your ups, but it was still a great movie. And this song just, I don't know. It carries on through the years. I can't tell you how many times I was asked to sing it for weddings and funerals and
Oh, I can imagine.
dedications and you know what. And it just sticks with you. I mean, I don't know. I loved it. It's perfect. It really is perfect.
So, one of my favorite stories was Gary Morris was hosting back when country music television had their version of a Tonight Show, kind of a talk show things. He was guest host, and Percy Sledge was the guest.
Yeah.
And they got to exchange that Gary Morris recorded a version of Wind Beneath My Wings.
Nice.
Reached top 10 on Billboard Hot Country Singles. It was Song of the Year, both Academy of Country Music and Country Music Association.
Wow.
And then Bette Midler did the song.
And
he said,
all about him.
Yes. And he said, Percy Sledge, you did a song called When a Man Loves a Woman. And you were and it is a classic version, Percy Sledge. Bette Midler's version did not quite go as strong. I guess Michael Bolton's version is a little bigger. Oh, yeah. But it was a funny moment to see Gary Morris and Percy Sledge go, yeah, and now Percy wrote the song, and he's like, I got no problem with her covering it.
Right.
So, I'm biased. I would have given it to Don't Know Much.
Yes.
Because of my Linda Ronstadt obsession. But if you can get away from the saturation and the overplaying of that song, it is a really beautiful song.
It is a beautiful song, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not Wind Beneath My Wings, so.
No. That's what I'm saying. Wind Beneath My Wings is a beautiful song. It just sometimes a little overused and a little wore out. But if you can strip that away for a moment and just treat it as a new song, you're like, wow, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
So, moving on to Record of the Year.
Yeah.
And this would go to the artist. Yeah. We had Micah Mechanics, The Living Years. Billy Joel, We Didn't Start the Fire. Fine Young Cannibals, She Drives Me Crazy.
Wow.
Don Henley, The End of the Innocence. And Wind Beneath My Wings, Bette Midler.
Yeah.
I loved She Drives Me Crazy by Fine Young Cannibals. That is just such a great song.
It's very different.
It is. I can just hear that in my head right now.
Did you? Totally listening to it in my head.
And, the singer, had a different look, but not crazy like Boy George look. Just, a really interesting song. I do remember, Don Henley, The Edge of Innocence is a very heavy song. And, but just nothing's going to beat Bette Midler and Wind Beneath My Wings.
No, that was definitely one of those, ones that was not going to be outdone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we've kind of talked about that.
Yes.
The one of the interesting things about this year is often, um, we go through spells,
Mm-hmm.
and in a lot of ways, despite Bette Midler taking on these, um, Bonnie Raitt had a very good year at the Grammys.
Yeah.
And for someone who had not a huge commercial success at this time,
Yeah.
just kind of a musicians,
Mm-hmm.
her Nick of Time album
Mm-hmm.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I loved The Thing Called Love, which was
Mm-hmm.
written by one of my favorite people, favorite artist, John Hyatt.
Mm-hmm.
And so she won like 3 or 4 Grammys. And so she kind of had herself a little year, a
Oh,
little thing that night.
yeah. I was excited for Bonnie Raitt. She's very down to earth,
Yeah,
amazing musician, and I don't know, she still does, and her voice is just so beautiful. It's got that kind of raspy sound to it, and I just really like that. She's got such an amazing vocal range too. So, one of my favorite songs that she did was, I'm trying to think of it now. I can't. No, she's talking about. I don't want to start singing it because then I'll go off key. But it's like, you lay down with me, and things will be all right. Even though I know you don't love me, just I know you know the song, but it's just that song just brings me to
yeah,
tears every time I hear it. And
right.
give them something to talk about. That's like sass and a rocket. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
I love that song.
Yes.
And yeah, so kudos.
Yeah. In fact, something to talk about was, in 92, did very, very well. Um, and, she, at the Grammys, absolutely. Um, the I did, my, um, Linda Ronstadt and Aaron Neville did get Best, um, Pop Performance by a Duo. They won a Grammy, so that was really good for me.
Mhm.
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Um, Carly Simon won for Let the River Run
Cool.
from, the Working Girl.
Yeah.
hmm Um, Katie Lang, and Lyle Lovett won some Grammys.
Mhm.
And then Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, um, is one for Will the Circle Be Unbroken Volume 2,
Mm.
which is one of my favorite collections.
Right.
I recognize Will the Circle Be Unbroken, the first one,
Mhm.
the greatness of it, but it wasn't as enjoyable as the second one.
Mhm.
I just really liked it a lot. So happy to see that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, before we go on to albums, anything that you stands out to you?
Not yet, because I'm waiting to
Okay.
talk about the album of the year.
All right, here we go. Nominees were
Mhm.
Traveling Wilburys Volume 1, Tom Petty, Full Moon Fever, Fine Young Cannibals, The Raw and the Cooked, Don Henley, The End of Innocence, and Bonnie Raitt, Nick of Time.
Yeah.
Yes. So we kind of talked about how this was one of her years,
Mm-hmm.
but anything of the other albums kind of stand out to you?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jesse,
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
because one of my favorite albums of all time, and I pawned this album off on people, but if you have, you know, you're out there in lost music world and you have no idea what you want to listen to and you something different. I get that all the time. You listen to something different. Well, if I got an album for you, probably one of the most successful supergroups out there, the Traveling Wilburys. They had Jeff Lynne from Yellow, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, George Harrison, and Roy Orbison. Now you tell me if that ain't some heavy hitters to be stuck all together in one group. And I'm telling you, if no one's heard this album yet, you have got to hear it because there's no egos on this album. I'm telling you. It has the flair of everybody individually participating and bringing their own style to it, which I thought was amazing. But it also had a collective feel to it that, you knew these guys had been working together for a while and they had bonded, and they were just having the best time putting this album together. And I love it. I have so many different versions. I have it on cassette, I have it on, MP3, I have the album, they ever put it out on vinyl, I'll probably buy that, but I love it. I just totally love this album.
So my wife especially loved it, and it is such a great album. Um, one of the things that I get in an argument with, and I know you will have my back, is my friend Sam, who I've talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
is a huge Dylan fan.
Mm-hmm.
And he always goes, Jeff Lynne, the one that doesn't belong. And I get all a buzz and I go, look, ELO ruled during the 70s, and he was the producer and put things together.
Oh my gosh, yeah, tell him he needs to take a music lesson.
Right. It is amazing that these um, five superstars, get together, and you're right, there is no egos. They're just performing together. They had a blast, and I agree with you. Just a great choice. And to tell you how funny, right? Tom Petty's competing against himself in Full Moon,
Yeah.
Full Moon Fever.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love Bonnie Raitt, I'd be tempted that this may have been, what they needed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah. So I like it a lot. Um, now the Full Moon Fever, great
Mm-hmm.
album. Free Falling, I Won't Back Down, which is still one of my favorite songs. Running Down a Dream, A Face in the Crowd. So that's a great album
Mm-hmm.
and definitely worth the nomination. Henley, this was his third solo album, but he kind of came into his own,
Mm-hmm.
and so certainly worth the discussion and the nomination. But just it was Bonnie's year, and the Academy was going to reward her. And I think a lot is that of all her years of kind of struggling and fighting, and fighting the good fight, and doing all the tours and being a working musician. Um, I appreciate Bonnie. I probably would have given it to Traveling Wilburys, but I can't hold it against because that's a really good album.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, they went on, to do other things. And of course, unfortunately, they've lost a few members along the way.
Yes.
But they're always reinventing themselves. So it's, I know they say the fact that they got, the fact that you get nominated is, honor enough, but I don't know, sometimes maybe it's not.
Well, I will let you know after the podcast awards ends, and I'll let you know how I feel about that.
Okay.
Um, yes, and I am going to be happy even if I don't win, but
Right.
winning is better. Uh,
Yes.
so anything else that stood up as we kind of close out the decade?
Well, I'm just, scrolling through. I can
Sure.
only be trying to think. I'm not really looking. I don't know. Traveling Wilburys actually did get a Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a duo or group with vocal, so that was cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking here. I'm also trying to ignore my cat, but
Okay.
um, I just I'm really seriously feeling like uh I'm done. I mean, 1989
Yeah.
just really was like, for me, it didn't have, the same spark and pizzazz that,
Yeah.
the former years had. It really, I don't want to use the word dull, but it wasn't dull. It was a transition period, and people
Well,
were waiting for, the next best thing. The 90s had a lot to offer, it just
right.
didn't have a lot to offer me.
Well, and to be fair, um, you are called 80's music girl.
This is true.
And so kind of appropriate that at the end of the 80's,
Yes.
that it might be a little bit of different, right?
Yeah, it's a little bittersweet.
Yeah, very certainly. So, we, um, I kind of, this has been a lot of fun kind of going through each year's,
It has
and
been.
it does feel in a lot of ways, as we're reaching, both of us, and 89, we're reaching different phases in our life.
Hmm?
You were kind of single mom, putting yourself in the right frame of mind, working on your spiritual side and doing stuff. I'm, as a new father, kind of learning that. It did end of kind of, as the decade ends,
Hmm.
a new phase started, which is kind of appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rosemarie, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I had a blast. I'm sure we will come up with another excuse to podcast together soon because I love visiting with you and it's always so much fun.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it. And I love visiting with you. And we still have to do Sarah Hickman.
Yes, we do.
There
Yes,
you
we
go.
do. When I get back on vacation, we're going to do that.
There you
All
go.
right, Rosemarie, how can people find you?
I am at 80s Music Girl on Twitter. I have an Instagram at 80s Music Girl, and I have a fan page for my music, which I just put 3 new recordings on my YouTube page.
Nice.
Yeah, so my fan page at Facebook is 80s Music Girl as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm.
All right. I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW. You can hear Rosemarie and I talk about music on Set Lusting Bruce. We have a at 80's Reboot Overdrive is the our feed, and we appreciate Dave letting us so much
Mm.
kind of hang out and talk about this. So it's a lot of fun.
Mm.
So I think that's it. We're going to call it a night. But we're going to end with there's a thing called love that we all forget, and it's a wasted love that we all regret. You live your life just once, so don't forget about a thing called love. don't forget about a thing called love.
Awesome.
Awesome. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80's Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80's Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80's Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.